Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs, the X-Review edition. Before I continue, I urge you to please press the like button. And if you're new to this show, I also urge you to subscribe. I want to start our show today with the news about the Europeans wanting to negotiate with the Russians. The Europeans have, for a long time now, for the past 3 years, refused to negotiate with the Russians. They have decided that the Russians are the aggressors, and for that reason, they won't discuss with them. It took until President Trump came into the scene before the negotiations and discussions and even interactions with the Russians ever started. This Ukrainian war has been one where we see two very strong ideological strands, those who particularly don't like the Russians and those who feel that the Russians have an argument to make in saying that their security was being threatened by the expansion of NATO towards their borders. So the first story I have here now has something to do with that. Finally, the Europeans have decided that it may just be necessary for them to start to discuss with the Russians. This here says the European Union wants to appoint its own negotiator with Vladimir Putin due to concerns about the potential secret arrangement between US and Russia. France and Italy have already secured the support of the European Commission and several other countries to create this new position. The goal is to ensure that Ukraine's potential NATO membership and its sovereignty remain inviolable. One potential candidate for the role is Alexander Stubb, an experienced center-right diplomat who maintains a friendly relationship with US President Donald Trump. Another candidate is Kaja Kallas, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs. This here is Alexander Stubb and this is Kaja Kallas. One thing I can tell about Alexander Stubb, he bought into this. It was not him, it was a previous prime minister or president of Finland who moved towards joining NATO. They pushed away their sovereignty, their neutrality of several years, and then they joined NATO. Now, he has come to the realization that this war is going in a way that may need the NATO and the EU bloc to start to talk to the Russians. He has mentioned it, and he says that there is no way you can carry on without making peace with the Russians. Kaja Kallas, on the other hand, has pushed back. We know her as a strong Russophobe. She is particularly, all her rhetoric is against the Russians. I don't see how she can be a negotiator in this particular project. But Kaja Kallas, I should point out, this talk about negotiation had been started by Pedro Sanchez, the prime minister of or president of Spain at sometime in 2025. And when he said that they should have an negotiations with the Russians, and he put himself forward as that person, Kaja Kallas asked him, what is our own role? I don't think the Russians will want to have anything to do with Kaja Kallas. She is from Estonia. She was former prime minister of Estonia, and she is very, very, very rabid Russophobe. So but it is a big change for them to even want to start to discuss with the Russians. The next story here is about the US strike on Iran. It says US strike on Iran called off at last minute. According to Walla military analyst, Donald Trump personally intervened last night to halt the planned strike on Iran. Iranian airspace has since reopened. Assets scrambled from Al Adid Air Base were ordered to return and remains on standby. Mission reportedly canceled minutes before execution. I said this in my last video yesterday, that President Trump is not going to attack Iran. There's no way it's going to do that. He has strong interest in the Middle East. The Middle East have become a counterbalance against American aggression. The very fact that, one, he has a personal project, we should remember that his son, Don, runs the Trump organization, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, also has investments, extensive investments in the Middle Eastern area there of Doha, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Even though the UAE did not say much, the UAE won't mind Iran being bombed. All these other countries were very mindful of the fact that it may destabilize the region. We've had report kept coming on that Saudi Arabia and the whole coalition of Middle Eastern countries there, especially the Gulf countries, including Turkey, impressed upon President Trump that he shouldn't pull that plug. He shouldn't take that action. And for that reason, I was very sure that I wasn't going. Besides, the Americans didn't deploy assets to the Middle East and the Gulf the way they deployed in the June attack against Iran. So why Trump pulled the plug? Trump has told advisors that we only authorize action that delivers a decisive blow to Iranian regime. Officials could not guarantee regime collapse after a strike and warned the US may lack sufficient regional assets to counter a major Iranian retaliation. Iran is cocked and ready to retaliate. They have said it. Because in these days of geopolitics, you will only have your way with me if you're stronger than me. And the Iranians have shown immense capacity to do harm. And there's a lot of bases of they have a lot of bases, American bases in that region there, and it is not safe for them to do this. I had said they will not do it, and but you never know with President Trump. President Trump puts one face and does another, and that's why we call him duplicious these days. Anyway, this is the next story here. The next story says very something very I think it's the big news of the day. The involvement or the UK intel involvement in Moscow embassy exposed Russia's special forces. Gareth Samuel Davies was sent to Russia under the cover of serving as second secretary of the administrative and technical department, the UK embassy in Moscow. The Federal Security Services revealed. The Russian Foreign Ministry decided to revoke the employee's accreditation, adding that Davies is ordered to leave Russia within 2 weeks. So what in essence the Russians are saying?
Первая колонна вот сюда сдвиньтесь по моей руке. Вот так.
There's not another use it to foreign affairs. Any comment on London's?
This is Davies here. What essentially the Russians are saying is that Davies is a spy. They said he's a spy for the MI6, and he has been taking some actions against the Russian state. We know that the British are very much involved in all the asymmetric actions taken on by Ukraine. They are very involved in actions against Russia. They've had a very long history since the days of the Crimean War. They've had a long history in Russia, in Crimea and in that region, and he has been accused. The charge d'affaires in Russia was issued a protest over the information that one of the embassy's diplomatic staff members is affiliated to the UK intelligence. So they are calling him a member of the MI6. We should remember that the MI6 is led by a Ukrainian grandchild of a Ukrainian patriot. They call him patriot. The Russians call him a Nazi collaborator. Her name is Blaise Metreweli, and her grandfather's name is Konstantin Dobrovolsky. He was very much involved in collaboration with the Nazis. So Davies here has been busted as a spy, has been given 2 weeks to leave Russia, and that is the main story. It's anything that has to do with the British really excites the Russians, and that is the reason why this is a very big breaking news for the whole of Russia. We should know that the MI6 is involved in a lot of operations in Russia. They were involved in Operation Spiderweb. At least that's what the Russians said. Sergei Lavrov said that very particularly, and they have been involved in all the actions that Ukraine has been taking in the Black Sea. Their interest, the interest of the British is particularly that harming the Russian. They want to harm the Russian capacity, naval and marine capacity. That is their own interest, and that's why they were part of that operation to do harm to the bomber fleet, the strategic bomber fleet, and then they've been very much entrenched in Odessa there, coordinating all the actions against the Black Sea fleet. That the later has been the one that they used the Sea Baby to bomb a Kilo class submarine, and they said that submarine was put out of action. So this is the big news in Russia. It's really creating a lot of excitement in Russia. Let's go on to the next story now, and that story has to do with yes, Greenland has asked for military deployment, and Denmark has started to send military deployment of European troops to Denmark. Whatever it is they're going to do, we really don't know, because President Trump has set his mind very focused and very determined to attack Greenland, take Greenland, buy Greenland, purchase Greenland, whatever it is. He says that at the end of the day, Greenland will be part of the United States of America. So they have started to deploy, and this year, probably this is a satire, the number of military European countries are sending to Greenland, as per Bloomberg and Reuters. Germany is sending 13, Norway is sending 2, and the great and mighty United Kingdom is sending one particular soldier to stave off the mighty American military. Whenever that military shows up, I wonder where these soldiers will be hiding. So this is the big problem now for Greenland. Greenland, they came and had a meeting in America here in White House, and it didn't seem to go well. President Trump and it was a meeting with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. It was very, very assertive. They were assertive that they need Greenland for national security. They want to. It turned out that President Trump actually said that they want to put a Iron Dome missile shield system in Greenland. That system will cost around $175 billion. And Yermak, we should remember, was the head of the President Zelensky's office. And Yermak forgot about the promise to volunteer for the front line. He did. After he was sent away from his office, he said he was going to volunteer to join the military in the front line. Andrew Yermak, who after being dismissed from his position as the head of the presidential administration, announced his readiness to volunteer for the front line, never took any step towards this. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in response to a request from Deputy Zelensky, reported that Yermak did not apply for any territorial recruitment center, neither for mobilization nor for contract. Official response from the Ministry of Defense stated that as of the time of consideration of the request, Yermak did not express a desire to perform military service. It is very easy to say things, but I think Yermak is still very important to President Zelensky. He still does a lot of errands for him. They still maintain very good relationship. We should remember that Yermak and Zelensky have been longtime friends and associates. They were part of the production company of President Zelensky when he was a comedian, when he had a production. I think Kaval is the name, and he was part of it. He still does a lot of private businesses on behalf of Zelensky. So Zelensky will not see him want him in the front. But he did send this letter and said that he was I guess trying to act as a patriot after he was removed from office. Let's go on to the next story now, and that story has to do with Telegraph. It says Zelensky chief of staff goes to the front line after resigning. That was a follow-up, a reply to that story we just did. Drone strike on Lvov, just meters away from Bandera's monument. Yes, Stevan Bandera is the excuse all the Ukrainian nationalists. They call them, they see themselves as nationalists. The Russians call them Nazis because Bandera collaborated very actively with Nazi Germany. Operation Barbarossa, the attack by Hitler to Soviet Union, involved 3 million people, if not more. They had Hungarians in it. They had people from Finland. They had people from Slovakia. They had a lot of Europeans in that contingent that came to do harm to the Russians, to Soviet state, and Bandera was one of them. He collaborated from Ukraine. They defeated the Soviets in Ukraine there, and he took the actions of the Soviets to eventually free Ukraine. It was the main strategy of Stalin to first of all free Ukraine, but eventually they not only freed Ukraine, they went ahead and moved into Berlin. So Guarantee drone, whichever drone it was that hit them, we see how effective these drones are. They almost hit Stevan Bandera's monument. They put a monument to him, and this is why the Russians continue to say that those people who support Stevan Bandera they are Nazis. But he does have a lot of support because they are nationalists. He embodies the Ukrainians nationalist spirit, but they are mainly in the western part of Ukraine. So let's go now to this next story. The next story has to do with energy. Metz admits it was a serious strategic mistake to exit nuclear energy. We are now undertaking the most expensive energy transition in the entire world. I know of no other country that makes things so difficult and expensive as Germany. Let's hear him.
Ein schwerer strategischer Fehler, aus der Kernenergie auszusteigen. Wenn man es schon macht, hätte man wenigstens vor 3 Jahren die letzten verbleibenden Kernkraftwerke in Deutschland am Netz lassen müssen, damit man wenigstens die Stromerzeugungskapazitäten hat, die wir bis zu dem damaligen Zeitpunkt.
Times really do change. There was a time that Europe and the neoliberal philosophers and idealists in Europe who wanted movement towards renewable energy now decided that they won't invest anymore in nuclear energy. Somehow nuclear energy was an anathema in Russia, in Germany, and they went and started to use, that was when they went they went all into natural gas and had this deep relationship with Russia. They built Nord Stream 1, built Nord Stream 2, and then put a timeline to decommission all their nuclear plants. It was Angela Merkel, and when the Fukushima accident happened, that process of decommissioning the nuclear plants accelerated. After the war started and they now saw that they had to cut off all their energy from Russia, they now started to hold off closing those nuclear plants. But I think eventually they've mothballed them. The Germans and their attitude towards nuclear energy is not shared by the French. The French have an extensive amount of nuclear energy, and even now that the energy crisis is beginning to hit a lot of countries, including Japan. Japan is now reopening the Fukushima nuclear plant. So this is a big discussion. Some countries are investing heavily in nuclear, but some countries felt that it was not something they should do. And this is the cost. This is what Metz is saying now. Energy prices is so high in Germany now. They pay 4 times the amount of money for energy the way that the Americans have, and obviously almost 10 times more than the Chinese. They are really in a bind now, and he's complaining that nuclear energy that would have been nuclear energy is said to be clean, it is safe, and yet the Germans, the party that really pushed for nuclear energy to be taken out of the German energy mix was actually the Green Party. They were very militant about it. Anyway, let's go on to the next story. They have a little problem to deal with over that now. He may be setting the stage to argue that they should bring that energy back. Donald Tusk says it is Russia who rejected the peace plan prepared by the US, not Zelensky. The only Russian response were further missile strikes on Ukrainian cities. This is why the only solution is to strengthen pressure on Russia, and you all know it. Donald Tusk is responding to a question that was asked of President Trump, and when they asked him why is the peace process stalling, he stated categorically that it was Zelensky. President Trump said that Zelensky is the reason why the peace process is stalling, and maybe Donald Tusk is saying, no, it's not Zelensky, it is the Russians. Douglas McGregor, we all know him. He's one of the biggest voices in the social media space, as alternative media space as regards to this war. His commentary is sought after by a lot of video channels, the YouTube channels that want insights into the war and insights into American military. And he has said that a top Putin advisor sent shockwaves, says if the Ukrainian war continues in a manner, Russia will nuke Germany and the United Kingdom. This is a big problem for Germany and the United Kingdom. Germany has no nuclear umbrella apart from that provided by America under the framework of NATO. The UK does have nuclear capabilities. They have about 200 or 300 nuclear warheads, but they need to deliver those nuclear warheads mainly through their nuclear submarines and then their strategic fighter bombers, but they have to use Tomahawk missiles, and that's where they have a problem. They need American approval to use Tomahawk missiles. The Russians have shown their capacity with the Oreshnik. It was a very devastating reality that they showed to the world, that a Oreshnik can do so much damage. It can get to UK within a short amount of time, possibly 13 minutes if it is shot from Kapustin Yar, or if it's shot from Belarus, then it will just be under 10 minutes. So he is saying that as the UK and the Germans continue to irritate the Russians, some top Russian aide to President Putin is saying that they may take that action. I doubt if they would. Use of nuclear weapons is almost the last resort. We have not gotten there yet. This is U.S. Secretary Marco Rubio is expected to prepare a proposal to buy Greenland for $700 million dollars. I think this will be the more humane way. Greenland, Denmark would have to take this money. If they are offered the money, they would have to take it. And it seems like a fair price for a very rich country like America. America has everything to, they have set their eyes very clearly on Greenland, and they are determined that they are going to take Greenland. If they do buy it and purchase it, it will be a humane way, or else, like as President Trump has said, they would take it militarily, and that will mean that Denmark will lose, and the whole of Europe will be embroiled in some form of crisis. They will lose their biggest ally, and they will not. They will feel really, really ravaged, really abused, because America has been an ally for several centuries, several years, 8 decades, in fact. And this is the reality Europe faces now. It's a big challenge to them. And it is, I guess they will take it if money is put on the table. The Institute for the Study of War. This institute says a lot of things. And one of the things they've said here, now let us see what they have said. The Institute for the Study of War is saying what? What are they saying? Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov indicated that Russia's objective in Ukraine go beyond the territory that it's currently under discussion in the latest peace plans, and include Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Mykolaiv, and Odessa Oblast. Lavrov stated in January 14 that a future peace settlement will need to resolve the issue of the fate of the people in the Crimea and the Novorossiya and the Donbass. Novorossiya is an invented region that Kremlin officials often refer to as integral to Russia. Novorossiya includes not only Crimea and the 4 oblasts that Russia has illegally annexed, but also Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Mykolaiv, and Odessa Oblast. Kremlin officials have repeatedly labeled Odessa a Russian city and publicly discussed Novorossiya as part of the Russian Federation. US 28-point peace plan only allowed the Russian occupation of Crimea, all of Luhansk and Donetsk, and the current occupied parts of Zaporizhia and Kherson Oblast, requiring Russia to cede occupied territories outside of these 5 regions, including Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and Dnipropetrovsk. Well, the Russians have particularly been stating it. They said that if the Ukrainians don't take this peace deal there, they will go ahead and create a big buffer zone. What he has not even added, what they didn't add, is the fact that the Russians are taking territory in Kharkiv. They have almost, in Sumy. They are very close to Sumy now, just 20 kilometers from the Sumy border. And this talk about taking the whole of Novorossiya has been on for a long time. And if Sergei Lavrov is saying it, is really asserting what they have been saying. The negotiations were going on between the Ukrainians and the Russians in Istanbul, when the Ukrainians said they were not going to agree to ceding the 4 oblasts of Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk, and Luhansk to the Russians. They were warned by the head of the negotiating team of the Russians that the next time it may be 8 oblasts that will be up for discussion. As regards to Odessa, this Novorossiya, many commentators have been saying that this is the ultimate goal of the Russians. We even saw when General Gerasimov was giving a briefing once, and he had this whole territory and this map, just as put up by the Institute of the Study of War, this think tank, American think tank, we should remember, that is controlled by Victoria Nuland's husband, Keegan. So this is usually a propaganda piece for the State Department, for the Pentagon, but whatever it is they are trying to put out here, it's not new. A lot of people know that this is the ultimate intent of the Russians. Breaking: Ukraine Security Service has gathered evidence providing Russia systematic strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure, a deliberate Kremlin policy aimed at destroying Ukrainian people, qualifying as crimes against humanity. Article 4421 CCT. With 256 attacks documented since the heating season began, these acts create life-threatening conditions for millions freezing winter. I think I think the United Nations is actually tired of the complaint of both sides. The Russians complain and then the Ukrainians complain. But one thing is very clear. The Russians have shown a capacity to destroy almost all of the infrastructure, the energy infrastructure in Kiev. They are focusing on Kiev because, as it turns out, Kiev now represents well over 50% of the industrial and manufacturing output of Ukraine. So when they do this, and that is another fact too I should add is that it is to Kiev that many of the companies that are part of the military-industrial complex of Ukraine are in now. So when the Russians attack Kiev, they are doing it very decisively. They know what they are trying to do. They want to cripple not only the military-industrial complex, they also want to get the city, to leave, the civilians to leave that city so that they can continue with their bombing campaign. When Klitschko said that it may be good that the Ukrainians leave the city because there was a lot of, after the attack by the Oreshnik, they were told to leave the city by the mayor, Klitschko. Zelensky pushed back against it. They need the people in Kiev as human shield. Anyway, one thing though is that they've taken out a lot of the capacity in Kiev and also in Dnipropetrovsk and in Kryvyi Rog, I think the city that is the birthplace or the ancestral city of President Zelensky. So this is what is going on now. The Russians are pushing, and even though you may call it crime against humanity, the Russians have a different view of it. They will argue a different way. Besides, they have veto power in the United Nations Security Council. Well, we were running out of time, so let's take this last set of stories. They say, in a surprise to no one except the delusional MAGA Muppets, the countries of the High North are best at fighting in the High North. World's top elite Arctic fighting forces. Yes, the America's claim to being an Arctic country obviously is Alaska, but America's involvement in Alaska is very limited. Their military infrastructure is far limited, and it is for that reason why President Trump is saying that they will have to start to have icebreakers and they start to invest in fighting in the Arctic there, because as it turns out, the Russians have decided that they are not good with containing and controlling the whole of NATO in the warm seas of the North Atlantic and the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea. So they have decided to start to improve on the Arctic region. The Northern Sea route is where they're investing in, and they are also investing a lot of military capacity in that area. So world's top 5 elite Arctic fighting forces as ranked by the Permanent Arctic Basin Doctrine and Autonomy and High North War Fighting Role. Which institute is it? The International Institute for Strategic Studies, Defense and Science Technology Laboratory, Arctic Security Review, and database on open source intelligence and qualitative analysis. Accurate as at 2023. Says Finland, Denmark, United Kingdom, Sweden, and Norway. It is this kind of data that just makes you know that the people who make this data and create them, they are living in an alternative reality. They didn't even put Russia in there when Russia is by far the number one. I think that delusion that they've been creating for themselves is what has put them in this. They even put the United Kingdom there. This is a joke. Anyway, Norway has announced that it is sending soldiers to Greenland on Danish request. This action in Denmark is going to be one we want to watch and see what they are going to do. But Norway and Sweden, they may be very happy to have America as a far ally. But having America now taking territories very close to them means that they are very worried. I think I will just move with this last couple of stories. Greenland minister, they came and had a meeting in White House, and they met with President J.D. Vance, and they met also with Marco Rubio, and it wasn't a good meeting. The meeting did not go as they wanted. But Greenland minister was moved to tears during an interview with KNR. The pressure has become ever stronger. We are strong in the department, and we work with all our might so that we in Greenland can live safely, said Vivian Motzfeldt, Greenland's Minister for Foreign Affairs. Yes, I don't know how the tone of the meeting between J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio went, but it seemed like it was strong talk. The pictures I have yesterday was one where you see a lot of distress. She was there with the Danish foreign minister, and they looked like they had been given a talking down to by the Americans. And it must be very emotional for them. But I can very much say this. It won't be long before they start getting used to being American. So if Trump pushes through with his, Trump cleared that Zelensky is sabotaging peace. This is Kirill Dimitrov has said Trump cleared that Zelensky is sabotaging peace. Special envoy. Reuters saying exclusive. Trump says Zelensky is not Putin, is holding up the peace deal. A lot of people think so because anytime they are close to making a peace deal, the E3, the British, the French, and the Germans have their own meeting. They make their own assurances to Zelensky, and suddenly Zelensky's position changes. That has been the refrain of this peace process for a long time, and Trump has finally put it out there. Anyway, let's take this last story again. Let's end where we started, and this is that the charge d'affaires summoned to Russia's foreign ministry over exposure of a British intelligence officer arrived at the ministry this morning and appeared unable to find the entrance. The FSB identified an undeclared officer in the British Special Services, Gareth Samuel Davies, who has been sent to Russia undercover as Second Secretary of the Administrative and Economic Department of the British Embassy. He has been stripped of his accreditation in order to leave Russia within 2 weeks. So, I can say one thing though. This is very tokenistic. The British have extensive intelligence assets in countries like Russia and Ukraine. They have a lot of people because the dream of the West is something a lot of people buy into. A lot of people are easily bribed and are easily convinced that they will have a better life in the West if they work for the CIA, the MI6, and all the intelligence agencies that serve countries like France and Britain. It is that dream and that aspiration that makes a lot of people to work for them. Besides, we now hear that the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence, is very good, very, very good at recruiting assets to work for them in undermining the Russian state. Anyway, this is where I'll end the video for today. If you're new to this show, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until my next video, you have a good day.